Hello there, guys. So I want to talk today about what I call conspiracy hypothesizing. Okay, and this is what I'm constantly doing because you got to understand that one, I never come to a conclusion. I rarely come to any conclusion I come to is temporary. Okay, and this is regarding what's going on in the world, understanding the world and the situations around us. We must consider a range of possibilities, not just get fixated. Oh, you hear one person say, "This is how it is." Alex Jones said this, and this is how it must be. No, but also simultaneously, don't blow guys like Alex Jones off because he's predicted things that have come true. I even think he predicted the dates roughly when the Ukraine Russian invasion thing. So we get where people are being demonized in the media and such things, and we blow off certain sources as being illegitimate or not credible. But you got to understand that in and of itself is part of the agenda. That's not what I'm here to talk about today. Actually, I want to chat more about Russia, Ukraine as it progresses further. So where we're at now is that now I guess Russia is retreating quite a bit and Ukraine is making progress. But guys, it's always been my assertion that there's more going on here than meets the eye. Okay, look, here's the reason why you have to always be hypothesizing or conspiracy hypothesizing. First and foremost, even your own government has to lie to you, right? Even if you have what we call free speech in your country, your government has to lie to you. They have to lie to you because they can't get away with telling the truth to everyone. Understand that? Like the masses can't handle the level of covert strategic crap that we have to do to accomplish things. Now, whether or not you would agree with or be on board with certain things, that's a different story. But to even begin to glimpse what's actually happening, you have to hypothesize. You have to come up with a range of, maybe this is happening. Maybe this is what's really happening. Maybe it's exactly what they say. Maybe it's kind of what they say, or maybe it's just something. Maybe there's this other ulterior motive, right? And we look towards other theories from the past, hypotheses from the past. We look towards our kind of common understanding of groups that always seem to be involved with these things. Now, one hypothesis I had on the entire Russia-Ukraine situation the entire time was that, well, yes, one, that it's a proxy war by the U.S., and that there's a bigger escalation, and there's this whole thing about like Russia and China versus the U.S. and the West. Yes, all that seems to be going on. But I I would argue too that look at what's happened to Ukraine, right? Sometimes, okay, this is some of the simplest ways of figuring out potentially what's going on in any situation is to say who gets what they want, who's benefiting, right? And I got to say that there's a common theme I see amongst, and this goes beyond country to country now. Okay, this gets into race and religious ideology and certain groups of people that are extremely, they're fighting. You know what I'm saying? They're active, they're aggressive. There's a common theme that there's always shutting down of nationalism, right? There's this, you can view this from the lens of like globalism versus nationalism or global versus local, right? Everything is starting to come down, not everything, but a lot of things are starting to boil down to that. Like there's this globalist agenda, which is pretty clear. They continue to push for their agenda to be implemented. It's a very corporate agenda. Some of it, honestly, if you really examine it, it's not all harmful to mankind, but their agenda may or may not align with your ideal view of the world, right? So in that sense, it may not be friendly to you. But here's my point. Ukraine has been full of Nazis in recent years. Like the Nazi movement has grown. I recently saw a video, and this was like 2-3 days ago, I think, on Australian news, where they actually had a touching piece about a child and saluting soldiers, but then in the background you could see these two girls, young girls, really young, across the street doing Nazi salutes to the soldiers. Okay, so who's against the Nazis, right? People I can't talk about, right? And who's highly influential in American politics? People I can't talk about. The one group of people we can't talk about, right? So, and look at this. Look at the destruction that was done in the Ukraine. See, sometimes you got to say what's going on here is a sacrifice is being made, right? This wasn't beneficial for the Ukraine people, right? And again, I think we the West, NATO, it's more to say we is kind of oversimplification, but we in total have pushed Ukraine, and we've pushed that boundary line that NATO promised to keep between Russia and NATO, right? So NATO is responsible for what's occurring in Russia, right? With Russia and Ukraine. They were constantly aggressing and moving their weapons and their lines that they agreed not to move slowly aggressing upon Russia, just talking about the possibility of Ukraine being a NATO ally or a NATO country, right? So, we knew that was going to irritate Putin, right? But when Putin decides time's up, I've been planning to push you back for years. Now I'm doing it. I tried telling you. Guess what? See, what we get in our media is all propaganda. See, I knew this was a lot of the stuff was garbage and it was propaganda because when it first hit, right? What I was seeing like in my YouTube feed and other feeds was like, it was all anti-Putin. It was all like, look at Putin, look how stupid he is. He plays hockey at this national game every year, and look, they let the little president, like a child, they let him score 8 goals, which, by the way, it does kind of look bad, right? So and then they brought on this really sharp woman. I forgot her name, but she really comes across as too attractive and too sharp to like not be working for a government agency. And she comes on PBS. I forgot her name, but she was a real sharp speaker. And you get the general idea that she had a sense of the situation, but at the same time, she seemed to be spouting propaganda. She seemed to be spinning a story. So, again, it was all anti-Putin. He's just, I'm paraphrasing here, but they frame him up as being crazy and like irrational, and he's at the end of his career and he's lashing out. It's just so funny how people instead of assessing the real situation and sharing that information with the American public, they insist on attacking leaders. Like, this guy, he's just crazy, like it's the same thing. I hate to say it, but it's the same thing they did with Hitler. Like, Hitler was a manifestation of what was happening at the time. And same with Putin. Like, Putin has the support of a lot of the Russian people to try and like frame it up otherwise, and to try to take the stories of the people who don't support Putin and try to tell the American people that, look, he doesn't even have the support of his people. Yeah, he does. He does. They're not all against him. It doesn't. At least that's the way it seems to me at this time. Also, guys, a lot of our arguing today is about race and class and all this and country to country. You got to understand there's bigger things going on. There's long-term, big picture. We're always fighting for resources, guys. We're always fighting for resources. And that's often what the real battle is about resources. And and that's, we're seeing that play out, and we're seeing Russia's, we got winters coming, and the Germans have to decide whether they're going to side with NATO and go hungry and freeze this winter, or are they going to go with Russia and have heat this winter? I don't know. It's kind of an obvious choice. They're kind of being backed into a corner. But again, it's not surprising because we're always seeing this Russia, even years and years and years, decades after World War II is over, World War I's over, we see this anti-German sentiment, right? These people hate the Germans, right? And they're going to demonize them regardless, even though they've conquered their country and they've basically got those people they can't speak the truth. They can't say what they want to say out in public. They can't publish any information that's going to be unfriendly to certain groups of people. They can't do it. It's not illegal here in the U.S., but I imagine it will be someday. So they've successfully shamed them and cucked them into not speaking, and so they can't speak the truth. And then now they're cornered into this situation, and now they're gonna have to choose to go against NATO. They're gonna have to choose to side with Russia just in order to have heat during the winter, right? So there's a lot going on, guys. But anyways, our governments can't teach us. They can't. So it's up to you if you want to really know what's going on. You have to find. Now, there are authoritative and reputable sources, like guys like Peter Zeihan, Zeihan, who really understand the demographics. They understand the geopolitical situation. He understands deeply what resources are actually being fought for. Right? His recent video on Russia, he explains like a lot of the areas that have been the battlefield and have been destroyed. Those were not very fertile areas to begin with. So but again, that kind of educates you further on what's really going on. Why is it okay to destroy this area? Why are they okay with that? Right? It kind of helps you get into the mind of the people actually waging the war, so you can understand why they're doing what they're doing. All right, guys, I'm sorry. There was no particular topic other than, conspiracy hypothesizing. Don't fall for the propaganda your government or whatever government feeds you. If you've seen people being demonized, that's often a shortcut to gaining consensus against someone, and it's not really reliable source of information. It doesn't really inform you. It just has you just become part of the peasantry who's being manipulated by your own government and they're trying to gain your consensus, right? And your support. When in reality, if you actually evaluated the situation more deeply, you might not support what they're doing. Or in my case, it's about playing the markets. It's about actually knowing what's going on so that you can understand and actually predict what's coming, right? So, but you're never going to get that from the information your government gives you alone. Like, you're going to have to look to independent analysis. You're going to have to look out to outside countries, outside resources to really gain understanding of what's actually happening in your own country.